Hello there. Let's talk about whether Joe Biden should drop out of the race for president, and if so, what next? I'm recording this on the day after the RNC wrapped up, so Friday. And as I'm sure you're aware, there's been a tremendous amount of discussion about whether Joe Biden should drop out of the race for president, and if so, how should that work, and so on and so forth. I've been thinking about it a lot and weighing it in my mind, and I thought today was a good time for me to share some of my thoughts. First of all, let me share something that Steve Schmidt said in one of his columns. Whomever this race is about will lose. If this race is about Donald Trump, he will lose. If the focus is on Donald Trump, he will lose. If the focus is on Joe Biden for the next 100 days, or ever how long it is, he will lose. This race has to be about Donald Trump. I worry that if we stay with Joe Biden, the race is going to wind up being about him, about his health, about his speaking, so on and so forth. Let me be clear. Joe Biden is the most effective president I can remember. More clearly, Joe Biden and his administration have been the most effective I can remember, and I will come back to that. So let's talk about what might happen. If Joe Biden stays in the race, the status quo as it is right now will continue, and I think Donald Trump will win. If Joe Biden steps aside, there is only one person to put at the top of the ticket, and that's Vice President Kamala Harris. We cannot bypass her or keep her in the vice president slot and put somebody over her. It won't work. It will be Bernie and Hillary on steroids. It will rip the party apart. So let's assume for the moment that Kamala Harris steps into the role as the presidential candidate, and they have to work out all the delegate stuff and so on and so forth. I understand that. But then what? Who is her vice presidential candidate? There's been all this buzz about Andy Beshear being that person, and I sort of poo-pooed it because he's younger and there are people with more cred and more experience, Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom, so on and so forth. But I read an interesting article recently that said that Andy Beshear polls really well with young people and with voters, and he gives Kamala Harris, a California person, a balance in the South. I think that'd be an interesting ticket. Even more, I think that putting Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket and perhaps Andy Beshear with her would completely change the dynamics of this race. If she was able to come out of the gate and really take it to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, if she was the one who put on the gloves and said, we're going to make this race about Trump and his agenda and his authoritarianism and his fascist friends and so on and so forth, I think the dynamics would change. There was a poll recently that said that a younger candidate beats Trump in every swing state. So one last thing. One person said that in order to give Kamala Harris the incumbency key, if you're familiar with the 13 keys theory, Joe Biden should not only step aside, he should resign as president and make her president. I think that's a horrible idea for a number of reasons, not the least of which is foreign policy and things like that. What I think would be very interesting would be if before the convention, before the DNC, Joe Biden announced that he was stepping aside for Kamala Harris. And then at the convention, in his speech, he said, I am going to mentor her for the next 4 months or however long it's be so that she is completely prepared to be our next president. I think, again, that would change the dynamics of the race dramatically. I love Joe Biden. He has been a wonderful president as far as I'm concerned. But let's be clear. It's not just him. It's his administration. It's all the people working with him, all the cabinet members, all of the staff, all of the people who have helped put all these things over the finish line during his time in office. Those people will still be there. And with Kamala Harris leading them, I think they can do just as much in her first term. So, as much as it pains me to say it, I think that Joe Biden needs to step aside. I think Kamala Harris needs to be our candidate. I think perhaps Andy Beshear needs to be our vice president. And I think it's time to beat the hell out of Trump.